Good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse with me, Daniel Daze. Coming up today, in exactly 3 hours, the final day of the final phase of the mass voter registration exercise comes to an end. Today on The Pulse, we take you across Ghana to assess the effectiveness of this exercise. The latest in the bizarre string of demonstrations going across senior high schools in the nation takes place today at Bright Senior High School in Kokrentumi in the eastern region. Today on The Pulse, we go back to the very beginning to try and understand the students' motivation. And in a few days, the JoyNews Imani Africa Minority Political Parties and Independent Candidate Election Debate takes off. Today we count down to that event by speaking to an independent presidential candidate. That's coming up here on The Pulse with me, Daniel Daze. Stay with us. Now, it's gradually spreading across the country. Final year senior high school students clashing with school authorities and WAEC officials over measures put in place for their exams. Last week, students of the Trinidad Senior High School protested the invigilation of their headmaster because they claim he was too strict. The latest incident is coming from the Bright Senior High School in Kokrentumi, where police have been deployed to quell violence there. We'll be crossing over to the eastern region to get the latest on this development. But this development is just one of many across the country, as my colleague Matilda Gavi reports.
You make we solve this book from cover to cover. English, already, everything.
There has been widespread condemnation of the actions by students at the Trinidad Senior High School in the Ashanti region. At the moment, a 3-member investigative committee is looking into this matter.
Without being judgmental, I don't think the students have that right. We don't solve our problems through violence. So if they have any grievance, we have to channel it through the right processes rather than to vandalize government property unduly.
These students were the first to have started the commotion since the commencement of the 2020 West Africa Senior Secondary Certificate Examination. Despite the condemnation and growing concern about discipline among these students, it appears their actions have given courage to other students to follow suit. The latest being students of Ndoro Ajapa Senior High Technical School in Dalmango in the West Gonja municipality. They vandalized school properties in protest of the 1.5-meter social distancing sitting arrangement in the examination hall. The students first turned off the light on campus and carried out their deeds under the cover of darkness. Parts of the ceiling of a new 6-unit classroom block that was recently handed over to the school were removed. The louver blades of the school administration were also destroyed. Their actions have already been condemned by the chairman of the West Gonja Municipal Security Council, Said Mohasa Jibril, and the Savannah Regional Minister, Salifu Adam Brima, who rushed to the school on Wednesday night.
4 minutes after 8, that the headmaster gave me a call that the students were going on a demonstration, and that if I can get the police here to quell the situation. But fortunately, I came here earlier to wait for the police. And what I saw, the students actually went on a demonstration and destroyed a lot of school property.
Going on rampage or demonstration?
It's a demonstration, whatever the situation is. They are demonstrating. The demonstration is just because the school invigilators are so strict on them, and because of the COVID-19 protocols, you know, usually the spacing has to be at least 1 meter to 1.5 meter, and so they think that is not very good for them, and so the school should relax the invigilation so that they can easily cheat. And so that's why
On the light.
That's why they are on demonstration or on rampage. And so you can see the police who are around. Even my own regional minister hearing it couldn't sleep. He has to come and join us here to make sure that the situation is brought under control. Demonstration, particularly the boys, have all run out of campus as we speak.
How do you know they were only boys? Girls were
In actual fact, we met with the girls, and so the girls are currently in their dormitory. It's only the boys. When I came in first, I could see the boys, some of them using face masks and whatnot, wearing nothing and doing the distraction.
Why do you make up of the new block that is being built for the facing out of the double track down there? It has come on attack too.
Yes, so that is as we speak. They have been able to put off the lights in the school, so we are not able to tell the extent of damage. And I think that we are waiting for the VRA to try and put on the lights so that we can go with the military, the police, including the regional minister, so that we ascertain the level of distraction in the school.
It's unfortunate. Like you said, IGP was just admonishing. As if you foresaw something like this happening. It's a crime to kill people, cause murder, but they are still happening. The education, what it means is that we have to continue with the education. This is complete indiscipline, and unfortunately it's cutting across the whole country. That the students, instead of learning to write, they want to rely on other methods like cheating. We are to unravel what actually happened. But as the headmaster was explaining it, it's a question of they not being prepared for right exam. And the spacing.
The spacing was too wide.
The spacing was too wide. We are talking about coronavirus protocols. In exam, everybody knows the rules. Strictly, it's you and your paper. You are not prepared to learn.
What is the way forward here?
No. Like the IGB was saying, we have to keep, admonishing the youth.
But wouldn't there be any deterrence?
No, definitely. Something like this can go unpunished. We are all with students, and strike didn't start today. We will see the end. It's a hope that we should all be disciplined. I was in Damascus. We had this. Some people will go and cause confusion. But in the end, eventually, when investigations are completed and people are culpable, they may decide to search the whole school.
Also in the northern region, an examination officer of the Tamale Senior High School, Alex Na, is seeking protection for his family following attempts by some students to attack him. His crime was that he did not allow the student to engage in any examination malpractice during their integrated science paper. About 100 final year students mobilized to attack him on Tuesday night, but he was rescued by school authorities.
These Irish students of Tamale Senior High School came to attack, they mobilized to come and attack me, the exam officer of the school, in my house. Just that, unfortunately, they were stopped on their way to my house by the senior housemaster and other senior members of the school. So they were spoken to, and then they moved back. After which, the headmaster also came and spoke to them. Then the senior housemaster and his team went and reported and reported the matter to the police, and therefore we were provided with police patrol. About 4 vehicles came around and patrolled there around my house within the area there, and this morning.
Do you know why they wanted to attack you?
Oh, the only reason is simple. Their point was that I did not allow them to cheat or to be engaged in more during the exam.
Meanwhile, JoyNews is learning that some students of Ikumfi and Senior High School are threatening to protest against an external invigilator whose presence at the exam center, according to them, is serving as a form of intimidation. Are we likely to be seeing more of these cases, and how do we nib it in the bud?
Well, there's one more case we're going to report for you. Let's go to the phone lines now to Kukwintumi in the eastern region, where students of the Bright Senior High School are said to have vandalized school property in protest of examination rules. Kofi Siao is our correspondent there. Kofi, take us to the beginning of this incident. What happened?
Okay, so Daniel, the students were writing their examination, so the WAEC officials who were there to ensure that they comply with all the directives from the examination body were also there. So they were ensuring that they practiced the social distancing protocols, and they, according to the students, the officials were too strict and that they didn't like their posture. So this brought about a misunderstanding between the officials and the students. They were insisting that the officials leave the place before they will write their exams or continue to write their exams. So this brought about, some kind of physical confrontation between the officials and the students. And the students took the phones of these WAEC officials and smashed it on the floor, according to reports that we received so far. Some of the officials were also assaulted in the process. So there was this journalist from Daily Graphic who has also gone there to report on the incident. After realizing that he was taking videos of the school premises, they chased him out of the school, crossed him with a motorbike at a place in the Kukwintumi township, and also unleashed severe beatings on him. So as I speak with you, the reporter, who is Emmanuel Pakome, is currently at the Achimtafo Government Hospital with a police report from the Kukwintumi police station, and he's currently receiving treatment from health officials here.
That's quite the scene you described for us there, Kofi. Finally, from you, school property has been damaged, obviously.
No, none. There is no school property damaged in the process. That is the report we had earlier on. But when I visited the school and the hospital and the police station as well, there is no indication of any school property vandalized or damaged. What we know is that the officials of the West African Examination Council, who were detailed to invigilate the students, have been attacked. Their properties have been seized. They smashed their phone, as well as the Daily Graphic reporter, who was also, assigned to report from the school.
Right. Kofi, thank you very much for joining us with this one. Let's also get the latest on the Ekumfiameyaw Senior High School. Anas Sabit joins us. Anas, what's the latest at the Ekumfiameyaw Senior High School? Anas, please unmute your microphones for us so we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Yeah. What I'm saying is currently, as I speak to you now, there is calm in the school. The students are through with their social studies paper. And before the paper, district authorities had to visit the school, led by the district executive, together with the district education director, Mrs. Teresa Pebu, to kind of calm the students down, have engagements with them, speak to them, and assure them that they are going to ensure that they are not going to be intimidated. The students alleged that some of these external invigilators have been intimidating them, especially with regards to the first paper, the integrated science paper, where lots of concerns have been raised in other places. In this particular area, precisely the Ekumfiameyaw Senior High School, their concern is that external invigilators do intimidate them, and in cases when they even want to go out and then use the washroom, they are prevented from doing so. They cited instances where they indicated that the external invigilator instructed some of them to urinate in the open, preventing them from using the washroom. This, according to them, is a form of intimidation, and as a result, they threatened that if things are not changed going forward, they are going to protest as the other counterparts in other areas are doing. But with the timely intervention of the district authorities led by the district education director and then the DCE, the students have been talked to, and they have come to agree that they are not going to do anything close to that. They also feel quite motivated with the visit, and things are in order as we speak now.
And as thanks for that update, let's now hear from the authorities of that municipality.
The 5 senior high schools in my district, as they write for their exit examination. In fact, students will usually need motivation from us, especially those of us in authority, to making sure that the sound mind they are required will be stabilized for this examination. But before then, the district had also received a lot of complaints that there has been harassment from the external invigilators. In fact, certain names had been mentioned as to how they are being harassed, and for that matter have affected their state of mind in writing the examination. And as representative of the president and chief executive of the district, it's equally imperative for me to move down to the campuses where these harassments are taking place and to ascertain it for myself. Indeed, the staff have shared with me, and I have indicated that nobody under no circumstance has the power or has been given the mandate to subject these students to any form of treatment that will thwart their effort of coming out with successful grades. And so everything is in order now. We make sure these students will have their peace of mind and write very well, as the idea or and let me tell you, Sabit, is form part of the harassment. Well, usually we have a hygienic protocol or hygiene protocol. You cannot tell me in this 21st century that we have well modernized washrooms or place of convenience that government has provided. Because of an examination, they are being barred and they are being asked to use the environment. Remember, CDD frowns on this because we are trying to make our environment a better place. So a place of convenience that has been constructed by government, and because of examination, we tell them they shouldn't use it, they should ease on open places and all that. It doesn't make sense, but the directive is that these places of convenience were cautiously provided to making sure that these students will find themselves, convenient as and when they are challenged with it. So the directive that has been sent is that telling them to urinate under trees, and even when they want to use the loo, they are not being allowed. It has to be stopped and stopped now, and that is the directive that has been given them.
Let's also listen to the District Director of Education, Theresa Pegbu, who is optimistic the visit is capable of preventing possible demonstrations at Ekunfi Amiao SHS.
This morning, I moved out with my to visit the schools to see for ourselves what are the rumors, whether that was true. We heard a few things from the authorities, and we have talked to them. We have assured the students of a serene environment for them to have the examination free, and able to pass and pass well. So even though we have had it, we have put measures in place. We have spoken to authorities, we have met a few of the regulators. We have asked them to follow the examination rules and not go beyond them, so they should not have the peace of mind to write the examination.
Do you see your visit capable of preventing these students from demonstrating as we are seeing elsewhere?
Definitely. Our visit has paid off. And even if students had in mind to do it, what we are speaking to them will let them put a stop to it. We've gone there to allay their fears of any external intimidation, to assure them of a serene environment, to enable them focus on the examination. And that's only when they will to pass and pass well.
Meanwhile, a Deputy Director General at the Ghana Education Service has described as ridiculous the expectation that past questions will be repeated in ongoing West Africa Senior School Certificate examinations. Whilst condemning the vandalism of school property, Anthony Boateng assured the GES is thoroughly investigating the matter, including the claim of strict supervision by students of Chenebo Akodia Senior High School. He spoke on the AM show.
Ghana Education Service and therefore the schools have their own, their regulations that deal with discipline. Those issues have not been compromised in any way, despite the circumstances in which we find ourselves. And therefore, any student or anybody who breach any of these rules or regulations will be dealt with according to the rules and regulations of the service. Now, with respect to the videos and the issues that are being discussed, I do not think for one moment that anybody should think that supplying past questions and chief examiner's report to students mean that the students were expecting those questions to appear on their final examinations. It would be a very ridiculous expectation. Like because we're giving past questions to guide in our studies, we're expecting those past questions to appear in our question paper, and therefore, when we went and those questions did not come, then somebody has disappointed us. Who has disappointed who?
But Mr. Boateng, we had a traditional way of doing this, where teachers would use it, or you would find it in the library. But this was a deliberate attempt to give each student a printed copy of the past questions. What was the communication that went along with it?
Madam, you will know, and I know, that when we were in school, those of us who could not afford even had to go to friends looking for it. And so the idea was that let's make it available to everybody, including those who can afford and those who cannot afford. In the past, when we were going to school and we were looking for question papers, we were not going to expect those question papers to appear at the final exam. They were to serve as guide and to help in our preparations. That is why we even went ahead and added the chief examiner's reports so that they will know what the expectations are as part of their preparations. Now, some of the issues being raised by the students is that their heads were too strict. That, to me, is an issue that we need to interrogate. The examinations are written under rules and regulations, and we expect supervisors and invigilators to go strictly by those rules and regulations. If there is anybody who has gone beyond those rules and regulations, we want to investigate. But if there is any other student who thinks that because of free SHS, they will be allowed to cheat and do what they wanted to do in the examination hall, it's unfortunate.
Let's have a conversation on this worrying situation now. Jerry Sam is Deputy Executive Director of Programs at Pen Plus Bytes. Good afternoon, Mr. Sam. Thanks for joining us. In the first place, what's your take on this worrying trend across the country?
Good afternoon, Daniel, once again, and then good afternoon to your viewers. I mean, it is quite shocking. It looks like it's a new phenomenon, which we haven't seen at this scale before. What really jumps at me is the need for us to also investigate the relationships that the students have with their internal teachers. Because a lot of the reports that I've listened so far from what you just showed us is that a lot of students have issues with the external invigilators. So is there a possibility that they've had an arrangement with some of the internal invigilators that they will allow them to do whatever they want to do? Or have they watered the ground, in quotes, with the internal processes such that they'll be allowed to engage in fraudulent means or unethical means to pass their papers? Because one of the reports said that they didn't like the external invigilators because they felt them to be intimidating. What difference does it make? Do the internal ones allow them to do whatever they want to do? But then if you allow me, I would like to look at the broader picture of, what's led to this, what's brought about this.
Right, go ahead.
The executive director person from GES was talking about in the past what we used to do. You know, we will go out and look for these questions. It wasn't even provided for us by the schools. But the broader societal picture is that our economy or our society looks at paper qualification as the be-it-all. That is the only way that you can succeed in life. So your parents are putting a lot of pressure on you to succeed in school, seeing that that's the only way that you can achieve career success. Employers also, on the other hand, are prioritizing certification over employable skills or acquisition of employable skills, so that students now feel that if they don't have paper qualification or they don't do well in exams, then it means that that's the end of them. So they have to engage in desperate means or inappropriate activities so as to be able to pass their exams. And you can see, you know, destroying school properties, vandalizing school cars and all those things, not taking part in the exams. It's basically desperate means that the students feel that this is what they have to do to be able to achieve success in education. So, I mean, students basically feel that they need degree level qualifications, and that's WASI is a step for them to get, you know, degree level qualifications before they can get into the university. So, I mean, as a country, I think we need to look at it holistically from the parents' level, where we are placing so much pressure on the students that, you know, passing your exams is the only way you can make it in life. And then also from the employers who are only looking at high-level degrees as the only way that you can, you know, employ somebody who is competent, overlooking employable skills. And I mean, if we allow this practice to go on, what it will instill or institutionalize in schools is that we can vandalize or engage in more practices, disregard the rules and regulations for examinations, and will be let through. And once we're able to achieve this as young people or as students, we take it into the job market, where we think that, yes, we can throw tantrums, we can engage in fraudulent means, and achieve what we can do. And I mean, you can broaden this up to all the way to even to national development,
right? Which
means that, I mean, the foundation is not there. These people are not qualified.
Right.
When they went to school, they were looking forward to the final means where they were able to write exam. They will be able to follow PASCO or write answers on their ties or small papers, and then go and write the exams and pass. But this will not work for you when you are actually employed and you're allowed to write a report, you're allowed to implement projects and what have you.
Right.
It will work. So then it affects the national development in the larger scheme of things, where we have basically rolled on. We have free SHS, all right, but then we have basically rolled on people through the stages of education into the job market where they are not qualified to carry on through policies and programs which is earmarked for national development.
Okay, let me acknowledge the ranking member on the Education Committee of Parliament and Member of Parliament for Akachi North, Peter Noshukotwe. Mr. Noshukotwe, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Jerry Sam on the other line introduced a very interesting thought that perhaps there's too much of an emphasis on qualifications, well, certificates from school in our society, and that's why the students feel by any means necessary they have to pass this exam.
Very much. We are all witnesses to events that have happened in the past few days because of the examinations that are taking place, especially the WASI. We are aware that over the weekend, some students went and destroyed the school property because they were not allowed to cheat in the examination. The vigilators were strict, and that the headmaster was not flexible. In fact, we can discuss that as conduct that is not good for us. If our young ones should begin life like that, destroying property because they expected people to, or their leaders to allow them to cheat in examination, we will not get anywhere. So that conduct is condemnable, and the students should be made to face whatever actions that the school authorities or the management of GES would decide on. Yeah, if you look at the issue now of a paper qualification, that is what has lived with us for so many years. And for one to change it quickly or in a very short time will not be feasible. It has to take a very long time because we have lived with paper qualification. And it is only the paper qualification that can make you progress from one level to another. So if at the secondary level or the senior high level, you have completed, before you continue to a tertiary level, you need to pass a number of subjects that can enable you move forward. So that is going to be with us for a very long time to come. There may be the need to look at it. Maybe the assessment may change. That instead of probably sitting for long hours, 2-3 hours to pass an examination, a greater portion of the requirement could be through project work and the inspection of work and all those recommendations here. So we can still look at that, but still there will be the need for some level of assessment, at least qualification that will enable you go forward. Because we shouldn't forget that whatever we do here is not limited to only Ghana. Someone may need to go overseas to study, and where paper qualification is required, how do you meet the requirements of that institution or university? So there's a need for at least some level of examination and then certification, so that when you are competing with others, at least you have something to show, something to make sure that you also stand in the competition to get place in the world of either of employment or further education. So we cannot do away completely with a paper qualification.
Right.
It is very important that we should still continue, but make sure that maybe we look at the form of assessment that will get one the certificate that is required to process.
Interesting perspective there. I'll go back to Mr. Sam at the other end and ask about the entitlement mentality that is being displayed here. Students feel that they are owed a pass, and it all goes back to the president. Isn't this a picture, Mr. Sam, of what is happening nationwide when you have people who feel like they need to be paid money before they can vote, people who feel that members of parliament who are lawmakers actually should be paying their children's school fees? Is that not what we are looking at here?
Yes, so it goes back to where I started. That I mean, it's almost like a reflection of what we witness, or it's evidence in society where we feel that something has to give before something is done, or is the general feeling that once I am in the school, once I'm going through the free SHS, I need to be able to be enrolled into a university at all costs. And so yes, you are not far from from the fact that it's almost like a sense of entitlement that or like almost a culture, a new development that students feel that they have to, at all costs, it has to be, it's a given right that once you pass through the 4 or 3 years of secondary education, then it's automatic that you should be passed and go into the university and then go into a career field and be employed. So yes, you're not far from it. That it is. So one of the things that we need to, as a nation, disabuse the minds of these kids is that, I mean, this is a merit system. Like Honorable rightly said, we need this sort of paper qualification because we are not an island on our own. There are other instances where our kids will go and compete with other people in the international markets. And in that instance, when we feel that we have to just stream through, when we go out there, we'll be found wanting. We'll not be able to compete with these other people. So absolutely it's necessary, but then we need to let them know about all these various scopes or various reasons why exams are important and necessary to prepare them for both the local markets and also the international markets.
So, Honorable Nochu Kotwe, we say that we are building the behavior of our youth in our schools. And is there anything happening on our school campuses which could be contributing to this?
Yeah, if you look at recent developments, I have said several times that we have a group of students now who are not taking their studies seriously. They want to be helped in everything, even in writing examination. It doesn't go like that. See, assuming that you have been given past question papers, so the questions should come from there, it's neither here nor there. You need to prepare for every examination. So, going on rampage because the questions didn't come from the examination booklet that was provided to you by the Ghana Education Service, you should go and then misconduct yourself. I don't think it is fair. So, we need to sit down as a nation and look at where we are going. How do we monitor? How do we engage our students at the secondary level? And then let them know that you don't get through secondary education on a silver platter. You need to work hard and work for whatever qualification you want to obtain.
Right.
And until we do that and conscientize them, they will still continue to be looking for leaf question papers or APOC, whatever they call it. And that is not going to help them in any way. So I feel strongly that there should be a new approach to the way we do things, especially with the secondary level education in the country.
Much Peter Nochukotwe. He is the ranking member on the Education Committee of Parliament and MP for Akachi North constituency. We also heard from Jerry Sam, who is Deputy Executive Director at Pen Plus Bites. Now, Executive Director of Child Rights International, Bright Appiah, says punishment of students involved should not halt their education.
When doing that or student doing that, there are two things that comes to mind. One is when we were giving them the past questions, what was the motive for doing that? Because in the past, students do have access to past questions, and they tried as much as possible, first of all, to understand how WAEC set questions and to possibly see whether or not some of the questions will repeat so that at least they'll be conversant with it. But in this time, government has never bought past questions for students directly. Instances where they will buy it and put it at the library so children would have access to it and read. But this time we had experience where we bought it directly for them. And for students, if you do that, there are two ways that you can express your concern to them. Either you express it like you make it known to them, but also you can also make your intention known to them by implied conditions and all that. So clearly, I felt that the decision of government to buy past questions for them is a good one, but I feel that the communication didn't go well. So they feel that, well, because we are the first batch that are going to write the first batch that are going to write the exams in terms of the free senior high school, therefore there will be some kind of leverage for us because a sister want to prove that what I have done is okay, more students will pass. So there's all kinds of expectations that we didn't manage properly. For that matter, students felt disappointed because they feel that if you have given them past questions for them to solve, then there's a clear indication that you're going to send a question from there, which we not solely blame the authorities for it or the student, but it is all about how we manage some of these things and how we transit policy from political decks.
Still live on the pulse with me, Daniel Dazi. There's more on what's happening in our schools when we come back. Stay with us. Still live on the pulse, and it's the final day of mass registration of voters, and already some pockets of violence have greeted the final day, with 5 persons injured after some macho men alleged to be bodyguards of the NPP parliamentary candidate for Ejumako Enyan Isiam constituency, Dr. Rashid Kwesi Etiafo, stormed a registration center at Ejumako Besiase and destroyed property there. We have these updates from around the country for you this hour. But first, a trip to the central region where correspondent Richard Kojonyako has been following the latest incidents there. Richard, first of all, bring us up to speed with what's happened at Ejumako Enyan Isiam. Right, Richard Kojonyako will be joining us in just a few minutes to give us the updates on what happened. Now, we know that after the last updates from the Electoral Commission, we were told that the target of 15 million people to register in this 36-day process has been exceeded already. And so more than 15 million persons have registered as of the end of the last phase. We'll soon know if indeed that number has been exceeded by 1 million or more, which should be another indicator for some interesting analysis. But in the meantime, Richard Kojonyako has joined us. Richard, good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Daniel.
Great. First of all, the latest on what happened at Ejumako Enyan Isiam.
Also, Daniel, no arrest has been made by the Central Regional Police. They are still in a meeting, so we are yet to hear from the Central Regional Police Command. The Ejumako District Police Commander is currently at the Regional Police Headquarters, but we are also told that 5 persons are currently at the Ejumako Government Hospital following the incident. What really happened was that on Wednesday, one of the registration centers, some thugs attacked the registration center, and that led to the injuries that we are talking about. Now, 5 of them are currently there. So the NDC has been addressing a news conference on it.
Right. So beyond... What happened at Ejumako Enyan Isiam, Richard, take us across the region. It's the final day of the registration. How has the process been so far in that part of the country?
Well, so the process has been smooth, with exception of Kaswa and then the Ejumako constituency. Today, the NDC held a news conference accusing the transport minister. They also accused the NPP candidate for the area of being behind the attack. So the regional communications officer of the NDC, Kwesi, would address the media at the Ejumako Besiase today.
Violent disruption of registration process in the Ejumako by attacks led by MPP's transport minister and then the Ejumako parliamentary candidate Rashid Etiafo, as they cause harm and wreak mayhem at registration centers. Good morning to you, distinguished friends from the media. I welcome you to this press conference on behalf of the leadership of the Regional Communications Bureau. We remain grateful for availing your esteemed platform to us this morning to address a very worrying development that played out in the ongoing voters registration exercise yesterday in this community of the Ejumako Enyan Isiam constituency. The Minister of Transport led about 50 thugs believed to be members of the MPP's vigilante group, the Invisible Forces, to cause mayhem at the 21 registration centers in the Ejumako Besiase enclave, which includes Ejumako Kumasi, which is the hometown and stronghold of the incumbent MP, Honorable Kisel Ato Forsen. Mr. Kweko Foresiamwa, who led yesterday's attacks, has been holding a series of sinister meetings in this constituency, and anytime he's in the constituency, violence erupts against innocent citizens perceived to be NDC sympathizers. The leader of his gang, by name Ali, who is driving one of the unregistered pickups, fired several gunshots yesterday and bolted away. Sadly, this unfortunate conduct of the attacks were in the full glare of the police officers and military officers deployed to the various registration offices, yet they did not even lift a finger to stop them. We are reliably informed that these incidents happened after Mr. Lord Comey, Director of Operations at the Jubilee House, Mr. Richard Techimensa, MPP Central Regional Secretary, Mr. Robert Kutin, MPP Central Regional Chairman, and he, Kwekwe Esiama himself, held a meeting with the Divisional Police Commander, Rashid Itrafu, and other MPP executives at about 1 p.m. at the DC's office yesterday. We understand this is where they plotted these disturbances at the Jumaku Besians because the total number of registered voters, which stands at 10,000, is higher than that of the number from Rashid's perceived stronghold. Yesterday, at about 6:45 a.m., on the MPP's constituency platform, more sinister discussions were held to that effect. In the reference conversation on the MPP's constituency platform, they plan to give a surprise birthday party to our distinguished member of parliament, who has the development of this constituency at heart by, in quotes, going a little bit rough at the various police stations in the Jumaku Besiansi. And surprisingly, this illegal operation was led by the MPP's PC, Rashid Itrafu.
Now, Richard, you've also been speaking to relatives of some of the victims. What are they saying?
So they have expressed surprise at the way their relatives were attacked at the registration center. They explained that it was just a simple registration exercise, and they are surprised their relatives could be attacked like that. Here is a sister of one of the victims.
He's unconscious, so we can't tell what exactly happened yet.
What is his condition now?
Now, he can walk, and the talking to is not good. Since the pain is at the back of his head and the leg, that he can't walk, and at the same time he can't talk.
What do you intend doing?
Right now, we want to transfer him from let's go to Accra, maybe to see a specialist and see whether his condition is good.
Tell us a bit about your brother. Who is he? Somebody who wonder how come he got caught up in this. Is he troublesome?
My brother, when you go to my hometown, everybody knows him. He's a lovely person. Even if you don't know him, you see him today, you'll fall in love with him. He's free with everybody. Yeah, that's how he is.
So, is he responding to treatment?
Right now, I can't tell whether he's responding because when I go here, he's still unconscious and stuff, so I can't say much. And when he came to his asleep, so we can't say much unless the doctor is
Were you shocked when you realized that a peaceful exercise as registration exercise, getting people to have their details captured to get a voter ID card in a peaceful constituency like yours, has resulted?
Well, thank you very much, Richard Kodonyako, for those updates from the central region. We come back to the Greater Accra region, a few meters from us here at Kokom, namely at Abeka, to be precise. A registration official has been arrested. Parker Wilson is there for us. Parker, tell us what happened.
Right, so Daniel, I am currently here at the Tesano Divisional Police Command, where the said EC official, whose name has been given as Wendy Amwa, is currently in the grips of the police. In fact, one of the CID I spoke to a while ago confirmed to me that indeed she was arrested at the Alive Chapel at Abeka and brought here, and currently they are taking her statement. Now, a police station officer who is here as well, one Eric Afo, is going to tell us exactly what happened. But already we've picked up information that this registration official deployed registration forms to a hotel where individuals are quarantined and registered them. And that is the reason why she was picked up by the police. But of course, she was picked up at the registration center. And Eric Afo, Eric Afari, Ernest Afari, What exactly happened this afternoon, sir?
So about 12:30 there, this EC officer went out with registration forms. Before she returns, she brought some two ladies, registering them. So I approached the senior officer there, and I told him that, what did she doing? And the master told me that he didn't know about it. So later on, I come to myself that we found that she brought the people from outside to come and register them. So that I called my secretary to.
So you mean you are alleging that those on quarantine were brought to the registration center to be registered? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, we don't know them at the area. And they are not, I hope they are not Ghanaians too. So I took a challenge form against them. That's why they won't agree. So then we report them out to the police station to take challenge form about them.
I see. Okay, so you lodged a complaint to the police and that's why they picked it up?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So that is the account of the police station agent there. But of course, the police tells me that the Divisional Police Command will address us shortly and let us know every details that we want. But this is the information we picked up from the CID and the man who brought the registration officer here at the police. Very interestingly, the husband is also around and also confirmed to me that indeed the registration official actually went to the hotel not to register those under quarantine, but rather her aunt who is under quarantine. And that was the only thing she did, and not that she went there to register a number of individuals who are under quarantine. So that is the information. That's the information we have gathered from the husband who is here at the moment and assisting the wife. And of course, and he's the one in your shots at the moment, as you can see. He declined to speak to me on camera, but gave me the information that, well, this is what has happened, and that he doesn't know anything about it because the husband, we are told, that is the NDC communications officer for this constituency. That is the Okankwe Central constituency. And that is why he believes that the NPP is alleging that the wife went to register those under quarantine. But for him, he doesn't believe so. What he knows is that it was the aunt who was there and she was the one who was registered.
Parker, thank you very much. Parker Wilson is stationed at the Tesano Divisional Police Command, and we'll be going back to him when the police come out to address the media, as you heard him say there. Now let's take you to the Bono East region, where Anas Sabit has been monitoring the exercise for us. Anas, how's the exercise been today?
It's been largely peaceful here in the Bono East region. In fact, from the first phase up to this particular final stages, we can say the exercise has been generally peaceful. Today being the last day, we were expecting to see at least a lot of people trooping in to register in most of the registration centers, but the situation isn't so. I have visited some 3 registration centers, amongst them the SDA Primary School 1 here in Tichiman, and then also the PPAG polling station, and then the municipal EC office where the exercise has also been ongoing. The first place we visited, even after midday, only 6 persons have registered at the SDA Primary School polling station. And then I moved to the EC office, or the municipal EC office, where as at 2 p.m. this afternoon, only 28 persons have registered. I tried engaging the EC officials to ascertain why the turnout, compared to the first 2 or 3 phases where we see over 100 persons registering a day, they are recording fewer than 30 or 40 people registering this time. And from what they are telling us, they are of the view or the conviction that most people have already registered. A lot of people, according to the EC officials, might have gone to other electoral areas to register. And so the entire registration has been very slow today from the areas we have monitored.
Right. Thank you very much, Anas Sabit, for joining us with that update from the Bono East region. Now, at Nima back in Accra, some centers had recorded as low as 2 persons registering when we visited them. My colleague, the electoral officers told my colleague Nancy Emefa-Jadosi that the highest figure recorded since the beginning of the final phase has been 30.
So we are currently at the Kizito school here at Nima, and behind me are 3 different registration centers. When we got here, basically there's actually nobody, no applicant is here to register. So the place is virtually empty with only electoral officers seated in their seats patiently waiting. I earlier engaged some of the electoral officers who told me that today has been generally slow and this week entirely has been very, very slow. They tell me that today only 2 people have registered at each center. So in total, 5 people, they tell me 221, and so 5 people in total have registered at the Kizito Center. But I want to engage the electoral officer for center number 3 to find out from her basically how things have been going. She'll be able to tell us and give us a different perspective from what we already know. So please come closer to me. Thank you. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
You are
Candice, the Arrow registration officer.
Okay. So I see that there is actually nobody here. What is going on?
Oh, a majority of the people have registered. We've been to 5 phases. So this is actually the last phase. So majority of the people who have already registered, they've crossed over to go and register in other centers.
I know that here is supposed to be the hotspot in Nima. And if you tell me that this week, which is the final week, and is gradually slow, then what does that mean? That people are registering in other centers where they're not supposed to register?
Actually, the thing is, the centers are very close. We have a lot of centers which are very close. So even if most of the time this place is for the church members, the workers, the markets people, yeah. So because of the start of the registration, this is actually the last center. If it had been the beginning, I'm sure they would have recorded the numbers that they were expecting. But because it's the last center, they have already registered in their areas before even coming. So we started on Saturday. We were expecting that on Sunday the church members would come and register. But apparently they've all registered in their areas before coming to church because they've done it there. So that is what is giving us the low turnout.
What do you think is accounting for this? Education didn't go down well with people?
I won't say it's education because actually the NCA also did their job. They went around to educate the people. I'm sure it's just the agitation of waiting for so long when you are seeing other registrations going on in other areas, yes.
But let's talk about this week. You have been here. This is the hot spot of Nima when it comes to elections. This past 6 days, how many people have your center at least registered?
We have 107.
107? That's not encouraging.
It's not at all, but it's still accountable for because the other areas have recorded the higher numbers, which means that it will still tally. Okay. Anyway, yes.
And today, how many?
Today, 3.
Today, 3. Are you expecting more?
No. We are not at all.
What was the highest you've recorded in a day and the lowest here?
The highest, we started with 30, then 31, then 10, 10, and then 3.
Wow. but tell me about the other places that you went to, the other centers that you, at the other registration centers, how did you
I think the highest in a day is 175. Yes, the highest in a day is 175. And most of them, we come out of there with 600 and something registered people at the center. Yeah.
Okay. So a little bird whispered something to me. I want to confirm from you. I know that Ayawaso East is a big place that records a lot of gets a lot of people to vote. But this time around, how would you describe the total turnout for Ayawaso East?
The total turnout is actually low. It's actually explainable because a lot of people have also relocated from here. Yes, a lot of people have relocated from here, so it's okay.
But if people have relocated, others are also joining.
We've not really, normally the new ones even that have relocated here have actually gone to their old places to register.
Okay.
Yes, because they feel they want to vote there. That's where they are. Yeah, so most of the people you see coming to register here have family houses here that they want to come and vote here. Yes.
But I guess the last Saturday and Sunday here will be open for registration.
They are planning on a mop-up, yes, but because of low turnout, we don't think we'll be sitting this way. They'll be doing it in the district level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. So you heard that that's an electoral officer for the Kizito area, which is situated here at Nima, generally complaining about the fact that there has been low turnout because as of today, she has only registered 3 people and they're not even expecting more people to join.
And the next stop for the ballot box train is Ablekuma South constituency here in Accra. This will be on the 7th of August, Friday, that is tomorrow. Our sister stations, Adum TV and Adum FM, are leading this particular show and will be broadcast live on all Adum platforms, that is on radio, TV, and online. It comes after a successful and interactive session at Hohoe in the Volta region and at Esoja Mine in the eastern region. So how ready are we for tomorrow? And how about the constituents and the duty bearers? Senior news editor at Adum, Mr. Christian Amwedu, popularly known as AC Ohene, joins us with more. Welcome to the Pulse, AC Ohene. Tell us about the Ablekuma South ballot box train. AC, please unmute your microphone for us.
Right, so Daniel, do you now hear me?
Yes, I can.
Right, so Ablekuma South is almost ready for the event tomorrow. And this is an event that will not only give opportunity to the 75,000 persons that have registered for the exercise on December the 7th, but indeed for adjoining constituencies such as Ablekuma West, Ablekuma Central, indeed the coastal districts in the greater Accra region. What we've done is that we have set aside the neighborhood center, that is a community center in the area for decades. This is where we all are going to meet tomorrow. Already we've placed ballot boxes at such vantage points and key suburbs as Mamprobi, Kolegono, Choko, Kolebusempe, and New Mamprobi. We've also, by the support of assembly members, actually gone from virtually house to house to take people's ideas as to what should inform the electioneering, what issues they will be voting on, and all these tomorrow morning will be collated. And so we know whether the issues are transportation, whether they are health and sanitation, employment, roads or bad roads, and what have you. We have had discussions and we've invited the chiefs. We've invited people with disability. We've invited women groups, traders, fisher folk, those who are into petty trading, as well as those that are mechanics and artisans. All indications are that tomorrow is going to be a very fruitful discussion that will impact the remaining of the electioneering, and that will refocus the discussion on issues rather than sentiments, on issues rather than attachments to political parties just because of traditional thoughts. These, we have no doubt, as has been the case in other areas, will help refocus the discussions and the electioneering on the issues, not only at Ablekuma South, but indeed in many of the parts of Greater Accra.
Now, AC, I believe you have visited the constituency from listening to what you've been saying. What have you been picking up from the residents in connection with the concerns they will be sharing with duty bearers?
One, the constituents are excited about the ballot box. Indeed, Most of them, many of them have had the opportunity of viewing or listening to what we held through Joy at Hohoe, what we held through Adam at Sujamai. For it, they say they have issues that they want to raise. They say they have some good developments that they want to mention, and they say they have some suggestions that they want to give. They're excited about it. They are collaborating. They are cooperating. As a matter of fact, some assembly persons have taken it upon themselves to not only ensure that people go to the ballot boxes, but they themselves are actually going around asking the constituents to write their concerns, their expectations, give it to them, and then they, the assembly persons themselves, go and drop them in the ballot box. A clear indication that participation is going to be very, very much high. But for the limitation, thanks to COVID, you could be sure that the neighborhood center would have been overflowing with participants tomorrow. But we will strictly adhere to the protocols that have been set up by state authorities.
Unfortunately, we've lost AC Ohenig there. He's senior editor at Adom. You're live on the pulse with me, Daniel Daze. Do well to join us digitally and physically, if you're able, at the ballot box at Ablekuma South. Now, the countdown to December 7 is on, and the general elections is about you, the people, and the real issues. The Imani Center for Policy and Education and your election headquarters brings to you the minority political parties and independent candidates election debate. Today, we begin the build-up with a conversation with the head of our political desk, Evans Mensah, who has joined us in studio to give us an idea of what to expect. Evans, welcome.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
Why the minority political parties and independent presidential candidates debate?
Because of diversity. I mean, in any elections, there should be multiplicity of voices so the electorate can make a decision. We concede that in the countries such as ours, in the Fourth Republican history, political history and elections history, the two main political parties, NDC and NPP, have won on the elections, right? However, over the years, there's been a conversation about a third force. But going into an elections, definitely, any elections, and as we progress since 1992, you've seen that there's a gradual push towards an issues-based election. It used to be all about insults and personality and ethnicity, etc. Gradually, through the efforts of Imani, election headquarters, and others, it's constantly and gradually moving towards issues. And in these elections, it is clear that if you leave the debate with the two main political parties, you are shortchanging yourself in terms of hearing what alternatives are there to some of the key issues that affect all of us. Okay. And this debate really is to open up that space so that everybody else independents and the minority political parties who will want to contest the elections will have an avenue to also chip in terms of what they bring to the table in ideas, just to enrich the conversation going into an election.
Now, you are head of political desk. You've been doing this for decades, at least. And we have observed in the country that the influence of the third force is actually going down over the years. So that if you're going to use 2000 as a benchmark, for instance, we had CPP members of parliament, we had PNC members of parliament, we had some serve as ministers of state. Now this parliament is totally NDC and MPP. So what's happening to these, and can we realistically see a third force make a difference in our body politic?
You have to go to the why. Why are they winning in influence? One of the biggest reasons why they are winning influence is because we have constricted that space for them to articulate their views and issues and policies to the electorate. When I say we, I'm talking about civil society, I'm talking about media, because of course, through those channels, they get to hear what they represent. As a result of which, we've given, of course, a floodgate to the two main political parties to pull themselves out there. So we should not be surprised that that is happening. Of course, you cannot say that is 100% the reason, because a part of it has also been the doing of the minor political parties themselves. But be that as it may, once they put up a candidate, once they put up a manifesto, and they do, we limit the space. And so the electorate don't get to hear the other alternatives. There's a huge chunk of people who in 2016 did not vote for either John Mahama or Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, but didn't vote at all, right? I mean, and I'm wondering if we give enough space to the other political parties, other than the NDC and the MPP and the independent candidates, to really get a say in elections. Will that influence that, group of constituents in deciding, okay, if I don't like the NDC and I don't like the MPP, which other group of parties or party or individual as an independent candidate best represents what I believe, and maybe we'll take that vote.
Interesting thoughts there, Evan. So I guess this is a prelude to what we'll be discussing at that independent candidates and minority political parties election
debate. So
debate.
there are two separate debates that we are organizing, and this is an Imani Center for Policy and Education initiative, and we are partnering them to execute it. And so we have two separate debates that we're anticipating. The first is next week, Thursday, in the evening of Thursday, which is going to be live on JoyNews and radio. That is going to be one for the independent candidates alone. And then we have a second, later down the line, before the elections definitely, for the minority political parties. We're calling it minor political parties, but of course that has issues there. So we call it minority political parties, just so to be politically correct with it. That will be a later one. If the NDC and MPP decide to change their mind and join, we can have a third one for them, just the two of them as well. I mean, that would be beautiful. But for now, we are having the two in partnership with Imani from the UPSA auditorium.
Social distancing protocols fully applied.
All observed. And I'm explaining to there's some very interesting candidates, by the way, very interesting. Do you remember the guy who, caused the stir when the government held this diaspora meeting and challenged the authorities?
You also did Ghana Connect, I remember
a few times, yes. He's running as an independent candidate now.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yes, they call him Kofi Ghana, but he's put up he has a very sophisticated website, and he's putting his views out there. Last week, Marek Gunn launched his manifesto as well. Very well done in terms of the tactics and the way he did it on social media. It was on a dome as well. I have a copy of that manifesto, very thorough, and that's the point about opening up the space. Because you're listening to it but I haven't heard this from NDC or MPP before, so this is interesting. But that's the thing about the debate. You get to interrogate it a bit more, and people get to know what else is there.
Evans, thank you so much. Thank you so much for briefing us on this. So it begins next week, Thursday. Be sure to keep tuned in to your election headquarters. Now, let me also apologize and say that we told you that we're scheduled to speak to an independent presidential candidate today. Unfortunately, he was not able to get here in time. We'll take a few messages. When we come back, we go to Parliament and find out what's happening there. Stay with us. Now, Parliament has approved the Finance Minister's request for a suspension of the Fiscal Responsibility Act after the minority withdrew its opposition. The Act says the Finance Minister should be censured and removed from office if the country's budget deficit hits more than 5% of GDP, unless under extraordinary circumstances. The minority had served notice it will trigger processes for the minister to face sanctions, but today the House approved a suspension of the Act without any objection. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu tells JoyNews the minister should be forgiven because of COVID-19, but he says new figures from the IMF show the minister breached the Act last year and cannot be forgiven. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins us live from Parliament. Joseph, tell us more.
So let me read to you briefly the conclusion as was captured in the report of the Committee on Finance that got approved earlier today, which essentially means that the House has approved the Finance Minister's request for the said waiver. It says the committee has observed that the COVID-19 pandemic and unforeseen economic condition has adversely affected every aspect of economic activity and created uncertainty as well as weakened economic growth. And it goes on to say this has resulted in an expected deficit of 11.7% of GDP. And it says, given the startling statistics, the committee agrees with the finance minister that there is the need to suspend the fiscal rules in accordance with Section 3 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018. And it goes on to say further, the committee is satisfied that the conditions precedent for the granting of the approval for the suspension has actually been complied with. And so Parliament approved this particular report of the Finance Committee, eventually greenlighting a situation where the Finance Minister can spend above 5% deficit situation without incurring any sanctions. There was a lot of debate even before the House went ahead to give this particular approval. For those on the minority side, they felt that government could still manage the economy better. Harun Idris, as you rightly indicated, was drawing attention to what he says has been revelations in subsequent documents that they've gotten from the IMF that even last year, the said act in question was breached to a certain extent. And he says that should be looked at. And Kweku Kwating, who is the Deputy Finance Minister, an MP for Boise East, who also contributed to the debate, made the point that government has been ensuring prudent expenditures, even despite the COVID-19, and they would continue to do that going forward as well.
Right, thank you very much, Joseph, for those updates. Now, the family of a woman who tested positive for COVID-19 in the Bekwai municipality for the Ashanti region has rejected laboratory results that she died of the disease. Relatives are discounting claims that the Ahren-based food vendor, who died less than 24 hours after being admitted at the Kochia Seventh-day Adventist Hospital, ever carried coronavirus. My colleague, Ohiming Teria, has been investigating the claims and has come through with this report.
Akuya Frima, affectionately called Inoakuya, has been taking care of her 12-month-old grandson after the passing of her mother on June 25, 2020. The baby's other 6 siblings also live with Inoakuya. Their mother, Rahel Edujemfi, 37, died less than 24 hours after being admitted at the Akoma Memorial Adventist Hospital at Kochia for showing symptoms including breathing difficulty, vomiting and diarrhea.
Even securing an IV line was a problem, and given the history that there was profuse vomiting and diarrhea, she actually came in what we call hypovolemic shock. The patient was also breathless, okay, so she had become oxygen dependent, and we had to give intranasal oxygen. She was actually even responding well to treatment. Before I came in, one of the team members had requested that the patient be tested for COVID-19. She was doing better. Then at about 10 p.m., all of a sudden, she became breathless again while on oxygen. Then oxygen saturation dropped and resuscitation has started. Unfortunately, the patient died.
For over a month now, the family has been up in arms against authorities at the Akoma Memorial Adventist Hospital at Kochia near Bekwai over what killed the mother of the case. Her scheduled funeral was postponed after laboratory results confirmed she died of COVID-19. But the family will have none of that, as they accused the hospital of cover-up.
Ti ya boatin e ka che wono so yadwuma ho ne nua ne papa ka say doctor ne say wonder 100% your friend doctor nku wonder oba wo hu san bia e won ho a kire say e yale ne bia administrator so won pene da me yanyi funu no na me bisa ya boatin say na administrator wonye doctor wo hwe no wo se yale ne bia na di ntina administrator se chinchina won pene me yanyi funu no wo se ai nurse ne suzi say e ba ye no watwe ne nsuo e de kom ye de konkran.
I met Dr. Michael Buafo Anku, a medical officer who took care of the deceased at the facility. He denied the allegations. Dr. Anku says the deceased died as a result of loss of excessive body fluids, infectious diarrhea as a result of COVID-19.
The part I'm not really getting is how we are able to see a case is positive, COVID positive, when we actually get the results from KCCR. So it's quite ridiculous for the relatives to now come and say that I am saying that the case is negative and the hospital is saying that it's positive because they are looking forward to some form of financial remuneration. It sounded preposterous. As it stands now, cause of death certificate, which has been given to the husband of the deceased, it is hypovolemic shock from gastroenteritis as a result of COVID-19.
Mother of the deceased, Enoquia, wants independent autopsy to establish the cause of death.
Administrator krom ha wonya doctor wahwe no se enye bia wo si ebia e na menye be kwai for municipal na waka no me kwa mani hu na so menye ni se wo ye municipal se dia wo hwe ayeso ye nyina bai me to aba wo so to aba na me be kwa COVID-19 se wan ho ekono obi ade ekunu abai na ya bansam na me de wo yale nyam nem tua ho ka na wo so a me sa pomatade ase obi a wo be fafu na kosie o pepe nson ansa na ma na aduane adi ansa na masan ama no kasika esisie pa na omo se me yehia na omo se me yehia ni mintimi ne doctor ntwema nso nti de omo de kobet atoso de nu anom beto so omo nyi nti omo de atoso de omo nyi me so omo anyi kobet wo se wan ne de a yesefu ne kodwudwa yesa de kopros motum ne ya kyerem se maame ampa yefru no sei na tie de a mepene so na omo nko a hwehwem na omo ye ne de me so me san mintim kata ne da.
Meanwhile, the Bekwai Municipal Health Directorate says the hospital did no wrong. Municipal Health Director Clement Intibuatin says his outfit will meet the family to resolve the impasse.
When they reported the client was sent to the facility, I must say that the hospital did its best in managing the case. So they called me and our rapid response team, we joined hands with them and we initiated the investigations into the case. I must say that we are even searching for the family. We want to have contact with them to be able to listen to what they really expect us to do in helping them out of this situation.
This is not the first time a family has doubted the coronavirus status of a relative. From Bekwai, for Joy News, Ohimi Nteria reporting.
Now, a four-member committee set up to investigate the death of a final year KNUST SHS student has submitted its report to the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council today. Leonard Richard Sam died after a short illness in school when teachers allegedly left him in the care of his colleagues for fear of contracting COVID-19. Establishment of the committee was based on Local Government Act 936 Section 188, which gives the regional minister supervisory role over education in the region. Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah says the report of the committee will be carefully studied for onward submission to the Ministry of Education.
Having received a report, because the ultimate decision will be taken by the Minister for Education, because if you look at Section 188 of the Local Government Act, the regional minister monitors senior high schools on behalf of the minister. So the regional minister doesn't take the ultimate decision. That is why even on the formation of the committee, I had to inform the Minister of Education before forming the committee. So we are also going to study the report and then add a covering letter to the Minister for Education for his action, for his study and possible action. We will study the recommendations. If we think there are other things to add, we will do that. If we think you need to forward it just as it is, we will do the same thing. But that will be done after you studied the report and its recommendation.
Now, Justice Obing Diewo, the leader of the committee, says they received the necessary support and has since done a thorough work.
We have tried to present a true reflection of all the evidence that we have gathered in the course of the investigations. So the appropriate authorities will make the report, available to the public, and then see the way forward.
In the course of the day, did you encounter any challenge?
No. In fact, that is why I said in my opening remark that we had a full cooperation of the Regional Coordinating Council, the Regional Director of Education, who is also the acting headmistress of KNUST Secondary School, Mrs. Uswachian, ensured that all the witnesses we invited from the KNUST Senior High School were available, and they were cooperative. Yes. So by and large, everything went on smoothly. That is the reason why we were able to complete the report on schedule.
You're still live on The Pulse with me, Daniel Dazi. Up next is sports. Stay with us.